Hi, my name is Zachary Angelot, and I'm going to be going over the gist of Go web servers and templating and serving files. Right here is where I have an example. Basically, I have the HTTP packages handle, and it runs a HTTP handler function. And the name of that function is C, which I have the function written out here. And basically, I was going to have it just write out the words hello world inside the page. A few things you sort of have to understand though. It is using the IO write string, which is from the IO package. And to create the server just as is, you would use the HTTP package with listen and serve, and at the port 8080. I'm not passing in any data. So when you write this, you're basically trying to create a web server that serves files or assets or whatever it is, and you're doing it on a port. This is a very stripped down version. There's no like security involved or any kind of logging or anything, but it's just a way to right off the bat try to get a server going. So we go to our terminal. In order to do this, you just do tree and it spits out your files and your folder structure. This is on Linux, Ubuntu. And so basically you have your folder for templates. This we'll go over later. The vendoring, which we'll eventually go on to in another video. And then you have your static files. But right now we're just focusing on the main.go. So when we do run it, we just do go run main.go. And this will create simply, it'll say, hey, listen for this 8080, which is right here. And this creates a URL, and at that URL it runs a certain function. And so that URL is /t. You can turn this to whatever you want. Same thing with the function name. You can change this to whatever you want. And it basically just runs this function whenever it goes to this URL with the 8080 port. And that's exactly what I have right here. So you can change this to, you know, tree if you wanted, and you could change this text, and you can change this to new func. As long as you make the right updates, it should still work. And so when we go to rerun it, you hit Control C to stop it, hit up in order to redo the terminal command, hit enter, and we rerun it, and we have to change the URL to tree, and there's the new text. And basically this is just writing it out to the file, and it's a good way to kind of debug things at first, but you tend to want to serve files instead of just text a lot of times. So hopefully you understand that inside the main function, in order to set up the server, you do listen and serve at a certain port. You do HTTP handle to do the URL and the function name, and then you define that function. And that's really about it. So if we want to serve, let's say, a file, even though there's a lot kind of going on here, pretty much all the handlers are going to have this, but there's also ways to sort of make it so that you can pass along another function through it. And a lot of times that's used for middleware, but I'll have to get to that in another video. So in order to pass along a file instead of just some text, we have to do a certain variable. It doesn't have to be called this. It could be new temp, sure, as long as you pass it along. And so when we do this, we're taking a type from the template package, the HTML/template package, not the HTML/text package, and we're just creating a variable of this type, basically a template variable or a pointer to it. And we do .execute template, and we do the response writer, and then the name of the file, and what data we're going to pass into that file. I'll kind of get into that more later about passing data in. We're just trying to serve a file right now. So when we do that, we have this template.must template.parseGlob, and really this is for, basically this asterisk is saying grab all files within this folder. And so we created this template folder with an HTML file, and we're serving it within that function. There's kind of a lot going on as far as breaking types down. That's why sometimes it's hard to remember every little thing, because you don't necessarily always have a mental model of how it all works. But it's a good way to kind of get the ball rolling so that you have something to start on, so that when you do more Go code, you're kind of doing it on a use case, so to speak. So we have this, and it's parsing these HTML files there within the templates folder, and we're describing the individual HTML file inside the function. And that's really about it, so that when we do go to run it, and we go back, we have hi, because inside the HTML file, that's what I have, is hi. I mean, you can have it do this, and I believe you have to rerun the Go. There's a way kind of around that if you do with a dot, but I'll go back over that in the future. It's more or less used for SPA applications that you can just run HTML and JavaScript files that are put in that folder. So it's sort of a way to build it and run it. But anyways, this would be one way of how you would run an HTML file. Now, one interesting thing you can do, and I'm using this sort of as a reference that I had put together, is maybe you don't want to build the HTML file every single time. Maybe you just want a header.html. And the way you do this is you do double curlies, define header. I mean, you can name this anything you want. I'm just naming it the same so that when I go back over, I can understand what it's doing and why. And then you do double curlies n. And that is going to define within this file what you're going to be putting on other files. And so if you were to do something like this, you can basically cut that out. Although you got to remember there is a, you have to complete the HTML portion, but anyways, and you also notice I tried to do some CSS here, but it didn't seem to show, and I'll show you that in a second. But when we go to create another file, let's say footer.html, and we do that again, define footer. I forgot to put. And then we do n. Now we have like a sort of always footer and we want to just get rid of all this. And you may have extra JavaScript files here. So when we get back to our normal HTML file, what we can do, kind of in its, here I'll show you. So here, all you have to do is state template header. So we have the body here, and I think, did we state body? Here, and then I want to go to the footer. And then we just get rid of pretty much all this. And we do template header. And then template footer. And then we just write whatever HTML we want in there. So when we go to rerun this, and we go to that page, there we go. Even though I didn't put anything in the header, this is that header file and this is that footer file. Saves a lot of work. I'm sure you could think of a heck of a lot more things to do with that. The only thing is then to go to this page, it's now 3 requests, and so Google SEO will sort of in a sense count that against you. But we go to, if we want to connect that CSS file, I have the background as tomato, and we go to that header file and see how we got the CSS. This takes a little bit to try and figure out a little bit that this ... is because when you do run the Go file and it's taken the templates, you do have to create a static or whatever folder you want to call it. But since it's running this file, the ... pulls you out of the templates file back to the outside, and then you work your way back in to try and connect it. Takes a little bit to figure that out, but that's how you do it. But you need to then have something serve those static files, and that's what this is. And so it's basically taking some variable, you call it whatever you want, and it's serving some files with a folder named static, HTTP handle. So basically if it goes to this URL and has the prefix, run this function and serve this file. That's pretty much it. And so when we go to run this again, there it is. So I think you could think of pretty amazing things you can do with templates, and there's a lot more things you can do with templating, which is kind of neat and fun and different, especially when you pass data in to the server and everything. But I'll kind of go over more of that later. I just wanted you to have like a general build out. I'll probably put the code inside of either the Go Playground, which it ain't gonna work because it doesn't have its own server, but just so that you can have a reference to it. I hope that you learned something, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.